welcome everybody to today's webinar. And it's as our head of the Digitalization Expert Group, Katharina von Klub, mentioned, we've rarely seen a webinar with more brain power than today. And we are especially pleased to do this webinar also in cooperation with DIT and Frank Ambos and his team. And I want to thank in advance all the participants, but especially all the speakers that you took the time to join. And I think we're all going to learn a lot. We all get a chance to have a look into the future and what's possible, what might be possible. And yes, we are grateful that BCCG can be a platform for this and the exchange, because I think especially also between the UK and Germany and the startups and the think tanks, a lot will be possible, and we should continue this dialogue. Since I'm not the nerd and I'm only the lady to welcome everybody and then keeps quiet and share the screen for some others, I'm happy to do so. But yes, let the show begin. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you later. Enjoy the talk. We will have, I think, the possibility to ask questions in the chat. You might raise your hand, and the moderator will ask you to step forward to open your camera and say whatever needs to be said. Have a fruitful discussion and a lot to learn today. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alga. So I'm Christian Tutschko. I'm the nerd. I'm the chair of this session. I'm very grateful. Let's thank Dolores Volkers and Frank Ambos for giving the opportunity to guide you now through this excellent conference, the platform. We will cover. So first of all, my background is I'm a particle physicist. I'm a bachelor's. My master's I did in solid state physics and did my PhD in the field of quantum computing then. After that, I moved on to the Fraunhofer IO and currently work there as a quantum software engineer, and I'm the project lead of the Sequoia research initiative, which is a special initiative for use case applications of quantum computing in Germany. So this fits perfectly, and today our roadmap will be to really discuss the application of quantum computer in different areas, like the IT security sector, like logistics and finance, quantum chemistry, and we will explain, or the speakers will explain what's hybridization, what does a NISQ error mean, how do we deal with errors and error mitigation, in the current quantum computing ecosystem. So, and one basic principles which we want to provide here is that we give you realistic expectations, what can really be done today, what are quantum computers capable to do today, but what is also near term, what's possible to do, and what's just myth, and what is the possibility, and where are the use cases? That's the special thing of this platform now. And first of all, for the clarification of the ecosystem of the framework we are in. Let's give the word to David Rain, which is from the sector specialist at the Department for International Trade.
Thank you very much, Christian, for that introduction. I do have some slides which hopefully will be appearing in the screen shortly. So as Christian has said, I'm a sector specialist for the Department for International Trade in the United Kingdom. I have a role which is to help our tech team interact with industry around complex technical subjects. Thank you very much. And so the Department for International Trade is part of the outreach that we do to a number of different parts of the world in complex subjects. There's a little bit of clicking in the background as somebody else has the microphone.
For some years now, and you did a great job. So my job now is very easy. So, but I will address it in a different way.
Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can see the slides. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. I think we've had to have the talk muted. So my apologies for that. So welcome everybody. As I said in my introduction, I'm David Rayner. I'm with the Department for International Trade. I'm a sector specialist. I have a technical and industry background in the semiconductor industry. I'm not a quantum scientist. I'm going to give an overview of the view of the quantum world and how we're turning it into industrial activity, probably from a UK perspective, but I think a lot of the messages are very international. Can I have the next slide, please? So first of all, when we take a look at this area from a very helicopter point of view, there's been some big predictions. I think the big one which stands out for me is the impact that quantum computing could have on our global productivity. There's various estimates around, but we've come across this number that there could be a £350 billion positive impact from quantum computing. And that's a really substantial impact on the way we do business today. And for a government that's very interested in the impact that investments can make on the long-term economic benefits, that's a significant thing to address. So consequently, the UK has committed to make a £1 billion investment in quantum technologies, which includes quantum computing as a very significant part of that. And as a result of that, there's various things have happened. So for example, we are ranked #1 in Europe for the density of our research in the quantum sector, and we have a large number of startups who spun out of universities. So we'll talk a little bit about that before we get into the nuts and bolts of the subject. Next slide, please. So the future in quantum computing, if we're going to address this, this £350 billion worth of productivity, really comes down to how we enable the three key drivers, which are greater precision in computing, the rising demand for simulation, which has a very processing power dependent requirement, and some of the simulation problems are non-scaling, and also the optimization requirements. So whether these are in chemistry or automotive, whatever industry they're in, these are problems which can release the huge benefits in productivity. But as Christian commented on the introduction, there's some problems here. We're still some years away from a mature quantum computer. The scale, the number of qubits or the processing elements which are available today are not sufficient, and they're noisy. So the current programs are to address this issue of how do we get to a noisy intermediate scale quantum computer, a NISQ machine. And the program running in the UK is designed to address that. Next slide, please. And we're going to talk a little bit about applications as well. I'm not going to delve into these in too great a detail, but when we start listing the applications, I think one of the things which stands out for me is just how embedded into both the UK and the German economy these different areas are. We are very dependent and world leading in many of these areas in both the UK and in Germany. So I think it's easy to understand this isn't just about enabling a technology, but it's also about reaping the benefits within our society. Next slide, please. So to sort of take another step into how we're doing this in the UK, I mentioned that we've invested £1 billion, part of a wider government initiative to spend a greater proportion of our government gross domestic product on R&D. And that's gone through a 10-year strategy plan to invest in quantum technologies and quantum computing. A lot of that investment is done through consortia with industry and with academia. And a lot of the work in linking in business and academia together is producing some very interesting spinouts. So one of the consequences of this program and other programs like it in the UK is we have 5 of the global top 10 universities who are creating spinouts, raising venture capital. And that means that in the quantum space particularly, we have a very large number of companies who spun out specifically for quantum capabilities. We're one of the largest in Europe. I think it's also worth noting that these are not UK specific consortia. We do introduce international companies as well. So both a company called Rigetti Computing and another company called Cold Quanta, both from the US, have been involved in previous rounds of funding. So it's a very international and a very outward looking program. Next slide, please. So the question really, I think, then leads us to how do you engage with the UK? And our academic excellence has been linked up through a selection of hubs. There's 4 hubs that bring together a collection of UK universities. This map is quite complex, but I think the left-hand side key gives you the most important information, which is that The hubs are aggregated around different applications for quantum technology, including computing. And through these hubs, through the one front door of the hub, you can access the whole of the UK academic footprint. Next slide, please. And I mentioned the spinouts as well, but these spinouts have tended to aggregate around the hubs as well. But they're not just technical enablement of quantum technologies, they operate across the supply chain. So there's a great diversity of companies across the UK. And there's an organization called the Knowledge Transfer Network. They have a lot of public information. This map is drawn from their information. And they outline the quantum landscape, which companies are active. So if you're looking for partners to work with, either in an academic institution or for a business, we can help you connect up and help you find the right business with the right capability. Next slide, please. So to drill a little bit more into what we're actually doing here and institutions that you can engage with, on the right-hand side of the slide of the quantum hubs and the details of what they do. And on the left-hand side are some institutions specifically around quantum computing. These may get mentioned later in the presentations, but the three I particularly like to point you at are the National Quantum Computing Centre, which is being established by Oxford University, which will be the main hub for the UK drive for quantum computing. Next to that is the Quantum Metrology Institute. Designing new systems isn't really worthwhile if everybody works to different standards. So the Quantum Metrology Institute is the point who will work out how to establish measurement programs, how to identify international standards that need to be established, and will represent the UK in that place. And then the third pillar is bringing in industry and the problem owners and connecting them up with the people who are developing the equipment. And that's where the Hartree National Centre for Digital Innovation comes about. This is the industry-facing part of the algorithm developing part of the problem. So this is where people from industry come, meet academia to work out how to use complex compute systems to address their problems. These are all institutions which we can connect you up with. They're all open to meeting new partners and for exploring new collaborations. Next slide, please. So that's the end of my introduction to the UK from a government point of view. I hope I've explained why we're investing this, some of the instruments we've put in place that we can help you support. If you'd like to get in touch with any of these, please do reach out to myself. I'm David Rayner, david.rayner@trade.gov.uk, or my colleague Frank, who's based in Germany, is also on this call, and he can help you as well. So thank you very much. I'll take questions later, and I'll hand back to Christian for the next presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this great overview of the ecosystem and the research initiatives and of their companies which are looking at currently in the UK. So as David already said, so our program is like, first we have all the speakers in a row, and then an hour again that we have Q&A session after that, because this talk already raised a lot of questions, I guess. But let's stack them and let's come to them later. I'm very grateful and pleased to announce the next speaker of the session, which is Ilyas Khan from the Cambridge Quantum Computing. He did his Bachelor's of Arts with honors in the 1980s at the University of London, moved on to an advanced leadership program in 2012 at the University of Cambridge and the Judge Business School. After that, he became chairman and board of trustees at the Leonard Chisel Disability 2009 to 2015, and also for the Stephen Hawking Foundation. And then he became fellow in management practice and leader in residence from 2012 on to today for the University of Cambridge and Judge Business School, and also is a fellow of the University of Cambridge St. Edmund's College. But most importantly for the scope of this business for Expert Circle is that he is founder and CEO of Cambridge Quantum Computing, a company which currently at least 125, at least to LinkedIn, right? 125 employees, so a very strong company in the QC ecosystem. The areas of research is also a topic, which is also the main ingredient of his talk is that they are focusing on quantum chemistry, quantum machine learning, optimization, natural language processing, and also quantum cybersecurity. And this title is a short introduction to quantum computing. So yeah, let's stick to this and let's define what are the exact tasks and products which are offered by Cambridge Quantum Computing. The stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much indeed, everyone. It's a pleasure to be online. I'm gonna stick to my 7 minutes and hopefully give you guys a flavor for what we're up to. I wanted to really, first of all, comment on what David said, because we would not be here today were it not for the far-sighted, and I have to say, adventurous program that the United Kingdom put together. Cambridge Quantum was indeed a spin-out. Cambridge Quantum have historically benefited from pretty much every part of the different stack of solutions that have been provided, whether it's our UK funding or EPSRC partnerships or industry programs. We've in fact had research collaborations with each of the hubs, and with NQUIT 2.5 years ago, we ran a quantum readiness program that was intended really to get to the point where we are indeed today. So I just want to confirm that we are one of many, many organizations that have benefited. But I also want to say that we're benefiting globally. This is geopolitical now. The German commitment to quantum computing, particularly in Bavaria, is, I think, today second to none. It is absolutely the most exciting little hub that's developing. We have an office in Munich as well, but equally there's a very strong Japanese program. There's an incredible focus in the United States. And so that is something which is just worth commenting on. As far as we're concerned, we have just announced a merger with Honeywell Quantum Systems. And the result of the merger creates the largest quantum computing entity that we're aware of. Actually, you know, we on a standalone basis, we're about 180 people. And together after the merger, we will be 400 people. And I can see us getting to about 600 by the middle of next year. I won't go through every aspect of every slide, but the point is that we bring together an integrated stack. And what does that really mean and why does it matter? And I'll try and give a flavor for answers to those questions. We are, apart from in the United Kingdom, where we have a center of gravity in Cambridge, we also are in Germany, we're in France, we're in Japan, we're in Hong Kong, and we're in the United States. Now then, how do I, there we go. I'll really just comment on this very quickly. The combined business will see me running the company. We're just awaiting the final regulatory approvals from the United States. And my very good friend and colleague, some of you guys might have come across Tony, who used to run Honeywell Quantum, where they for 14 years have been involved in a project to build a trapped ion device, will be the president. I really want to get into a couple of issues here today. You know, we take the view that there's a spectrum of application. And in fact, there's one product which doesn't require any further enhancement in quantum computers and which can only be done by a quantum computer, which will be commercially available in a few weeks' time, all the way through to things which are many years away. And we take a very relaxed view about the informed consensus. We think that as new developments come about, there's a refresh in terms of expectation. We do not worry about a mismatch between expectation and reality because all large corporates, whether it's Roche, whether it's British Petroleum, whether it's ExxonMobil, or whether it's GlaxoSmithKline, whether it's Toshiba, or whether it's Siemens, whether it's Merck, these are all clients of CQC, they are informed. They are large organizations who know as much as we ever will about what can and cannot be done. We also think in the last 1 year, there's been a really nice centering and grounding of language. There's a lot to be done, but we're really pleased by that. Of course, there are these maniacal fringes. There are at one end people who think everything's going to change tomorrow, and quite often they have a financial agenda. And then there are people who think it's never going to be done. So, you know, if you take out those fanatical fringes, we're pretty relaxed about things. Then the next few slides, I really am going to run through. We're active in cybersecurity, we're active in chemical simulations, and we're active in machine learning. We think machine learning is some years away from having real world relevance, but actually what we're seeing is very large organizations around the world are actually now beginning to allocate meaningful capital. I'll give a couple of comments on what that means. But the basis of who we are and what we are is something called ticket. On the left-hand side, that wagon wheel shows that there are over 170 companies around the world that believe that their way of generating qubits is the best. This is not something which one or two people dominate. And that wagon wheel doesn't show all of them. What we have done over many years, in fact, inspired by an NQUIT grant in 2015, is build Ticket. Ticket is the world's largest software development kit. It is open sourced, and it's now, that chart on the right-hand side is well out of date. There's about 140,000 users. And this is testimony to the fact that this is really important to people now. There's corporate users, there are users in academia. So Ticket is our core ecosystem contribution. I'm not going to say very much about this slide. That leads us on to the ability to credibly talk about an operating system. Until recently, this was not credible. There is now a device. The device is the Honeywell Quantum computer, which does things like mid-circuit measurement and which has sufficient quantum volume and various other technical capabilities that allows for an actual operating system to be implemented. So that's a second piece of the middleware. So you go from the machineware all the way up through to the user through Ticket, and you've got the operating system in the middle. Then as far as applications are concerned, obviously everybody's aware of the quantum native nature of quantum chemistry. I'm sure many people will talk about that at some point. What we have found is a two-tiered approach in the real world, not the make-believe fictive world. So in the real world, about a year ago, large organizations such as Roche, such as Total, such as Nippon Steel, these are three examples of clients of ours who decided that in the next 5 to 7 years, which is a timeline comparable to what they do anyway in classical material discovery, we could discover and hopefully make a difference in certain areas. So these areas might be a cure for Alzheimer's, it might be carbon sequestration, it might be materials for space discovery. So that was the basis of what we do. And we have these 7 or 8 clients on that side. And then, of course, we have a computational chemistry platform, which is currently not capable of being implemented in the real world and is largely used experimentally. Our guess is that quantum volume will get to a point where these things are commercial about autumn of next year, if the roadmap of what people have said they will deliver in qubit volume is indeed met. So that's on the chemistry side. The machine learning side, I'm not going to talk about too much because these are all proofs of concept. These are not yet commercial, but there's lots of them. One thing that David had inferred, which I want to confirm, there are literally dozens of global organizations that are allocating real dollars, not just 10, 20, 50,000, but meaningful amounts of hundreds of thousands of dollars to proofs of concept, which is the first sign of commercialization. There's a long journey ahead. Nobody thinks we're going to solve problems tomorrow, but this is very, very good. This has never happened before. It is only in the last few months that this has started to emerge. We've just open sourced Lambec, which is the other area, which is quantum native. So this is language processing, was discovered to be quantum native, which means that you can actually simulate language in Hilbert space and take advantage of the quantum process. Last week, we launched a software development kit, a toolkit, which if you type in a language, it pops out a quantum circuit. This is longer term. Nobody's suggesting that language will be processed using quantum computers tomorrow. Why is this important? It's important because there's a different way of doing things. There's no brute force, there's no opacity. You decrease opacity, you increase interpretability, and you can be held accountable. Quantum AI is different from the brute force, expensive way of doing things in the past. And I'm very excited about this because smarter people than us will discover ways to utilize this and make sure we don't fall victim to all the stuff that we've been doing wrong for the last 30 years in terms of opaque brute force systems that are prone to bias. In 5 or 6 weeks' time, we will announce the global launch together with global partners of the first product that cannot be done or replicated classically. This is a cybersecurity product. I'm not going to say much more about it here, but this is now and it is for real. So the next time somebody says that quantum computers aren't for real for 20 years, you can gently and politely point them in this direction. This is a cybersecurity product that utilizes the Bell test and generates entropy that is certifiably and verifiably quantum and cannot be hacked. The base of our stack is obviously the hardware. I'm not going to talk too much about this. It's in the public domain. We recently showed the best logical qubit, well, not the best, the only logical qubit, and error correcting that is dynamic and not post-processing. This is a device that is in the United States, and it is an ion trap device. That's me done. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this great expectation management and also overview, technical overview, and overview over the ecosystem and the products which you're offering within your company, which is impressive. And yeah, quantum is now as the main statement. Yeah, great. There are a lot of further questions. Let's go. Let's take them later. And yeah, it's a pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Kevin Füchsel from Quantum Optics Jena. Dr. Kevin Füchsel did his diploma in physics in 2007. Then he did his PhD program at the same university and became there a junior research group leader by 2011 to 2013. After that, he moved on to the Fraunhofer IOF in Jena, Germany, and became a head of department for strategy, marketing, and coordination. After that, he became a senior director in business development marketing, and then finally in 2020 became CEO of Quantum Optics Jena, which is a startup in the quantum computing ecosystem. The current areas of research of this company, Quantum Optics Jena, are quantum technologies, quantum communication, quantum imaging, entangled photon sources, also the cybersecurity solutions, and most importantly, the quantum key distributions. And the goal is to find confidence in data security, to get more insights into matter and biology, and to gain more information processing capacity in the quantum computing and machine learning area. So maybe some of you have heard of the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradoxon way back in time, which is, I guess, the main principle with, which uses Quantum Optics Jena to work with entangled photons. So the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot. So first question, I hope you can see my screen. It works? Yeah, perfect. Hello to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and present some of our activities we do in Jena. But before I start, let me just quickly introduce our company. So about QAL. So we are a startup from the Fraunhofer Institute of Applied Optics and Precision Engineering, just here in Jena. It's an institute quite famous for optical system development. And as you can see, our source at our entangled photon source we developed in the Fraunhofer Institute is quite famous because our chancellor, Ms. Merkel, has already her hands on our system. So this is the beginning of our journey. This was a project started in 2014, 2015, and now we as Quantum Optics Jena try to commercialize these activities. So my co-founder is Oliver de Vries. He's the CTO of the company and builds this beautiful source. We closed our seed round in January this year, and having now a team of 10 persons or people working in the field of quantum technologies. Before I start, only a rough a rough sketch why quantum technology is so cool right now. So at the moment, we are at the situation that we are able to manipulate single atoms and photons on very a molecular level. And this leads us to the fact that we now can use quantum physics and quantum mechanics to actually interact with these particles. So now we have two very strange properties. The first one is called superposition. You probably have heard about Einstein's Schrödinger's cat experiment. You put a cat into a box and you close it, and you have a radioactive element within the box. And if the element will be changes, then you will kill the cat. So from outside, you never know if the cat is alive or dead. And this is, in terms of quantum mechanics, some kind of superposition. And the other one, as Peter mentioned, is the strange entanglement thing. And entanglement is really crazy because you can entangle particles, for example, photons, in a way that you use the the properties of the particles after the measurement. And if you now send these photons, for example, millions of kilometers away, and you will check the element or the properties of one photon at one precision time, you actually know exactly the same minute or the same second the properties of the other element or photon. And this is quite strange. You cannot describe this with classical physics. It's an element of the quantum mechanics, which we use. And we use this for our vision to enable or to deliver cybersecurity solutions with a quantum added value. And if you think about this in the future, it's called quantum key distribution, and how we deliver these keys I will explain in some minutes. We focus in actually our activities in fiber networks and satellite constellations, but also you can think about delivering these keys in free space links, for example. So where is it important? What's the business case? So at the moment, we discuss business cases with customers with special needs in security. You can think about economics, defense and military, but also governments, health industry, or critical infrastructure. And why it is so important? So data security is, let's say, within the human DNA. So over 2,000 years, we think about how to encrypt messages, how to make sure that nobody can read our messages. You have, for example, the Caesar ciphers, which are used by the old Romans. We also have the ancient Greeks, which developed some kind of encryption system. And all our internet traffic right now was developed in the late 70s from Whitfield Deffield and Martin Hellman with the public-private key encryption system, which is now the basic of our, let's say, daily internet communication. But there are two guys, Peter Shor and Love Brewer, and they developed or they proposed some algorithms, and these algorithms were quite strong because they use quantum computers, or they propose you can use these algorithms with the quantum computer, and especially the Shor algorithm is quite interesting if you think about prime factorization. And this leads to the fact that a quantum computer is quite good in decrypting our, let's say, classical internet communication. So as you can see, this is a table from Etsy. It's a standardization arena or institution. Here you have the algorithm. It's classical RSA, which we use for our encryption of the internet. ECC is also some kind of encryption system, but also the advanced encryption system standard is something we use. And as you can, this white paper compares conventional computing with quantum computing, and as you can see, the numbers for our classical communication are not so good. So this leads to the fact that we are now that quantum will be a threat. The quantum computer will be a threat to cybersecurity because it enables the decryption of messages, and there are institutions right now which store a lot of data to be able to encrypt this data in a couple of years. So at the moment, we have to think about solutions to avoid this or to make sure that our messages, our informations will be secure. So there are two ways to do this. So one is post-quantum cryptography. So it's, let's say, some kind of advanced encryption or mathematical encryption systems. Another one is the so-called quantum key distribution. And to give you a really short explanation, what's quantum key distribution, or QKD? It's a generation and tap-proof distribution of symmetric keys by the laws of quantum physics, or especially quantum optics in our case. How can you think about this? So you have a communication layer where you want to share the communication between Alice and Bob. And what QKD does, it introduces a quantum layer where we really only share quantum information, for example, single photons. And this single photons will be used to generate keys, symmetric keys at Alice and Bob's side. And by using quantum mechanics, because we only have single particles, so if you send it out and you just can imagine somebody measures your particle or your photon, it's gone. So your photon is not a photon anymore, and it's an electrical signal. And the nice thing on quantum states is you cannot clone them. So you cannot exactly clone a quantum state and send it further away. So you recognize this. So the sharing of these keys will be tap-proof at the end. For quantum optics Xena, we have a special system based on this entanglement approach. So we generate at the end entangled photons. So we have two photons. We encrypt the information in, let's say, zeros and ones in the polarization. So polarization means the oscillation direction of the electromagnetic field. It can be horizontal, it can be vertical. And depending on which state we have 0 or 1. And what we do as quantum optics Xena, we generate, or we create entangled photon sources in a way that we use crystals at the end. It's a physical process where we use nonlinear crystals. And you can think about, we have a pump laser, and this pump laser shines through this crystal. And with the help of physics, we create out of this pump photon, two photons, which are entangled. And these photons we can use to send it to Alice and Bob. And as they fly to Alice and Bob, they will stay entangled. The entanglement will be broken at the point where Alice or Bob measures them. And as I said before, so if you measure them, you know exactly what the opposite side will be. So if Alice measures, for example, 1, she will know that Bob, for example, has a 0. Now think about, you have a lot of photons you send to Alice and Bob, and if everything is quite fine, Alice and Bob will have a symmetric key because they know exactly what they have measured, and so you can build up keys without taproot keys, because you will recognize if somebody tries to manipulate or tries to compromise the system, and you have symmetric keys. That's very unique for this approach. After you have the single photon detection, you have to do some kind of quantum protocol to make sure, because we don't be in the ideal world. So we every time have errors, some photons will be lost, and use some kind of error correction process and privacy amplification to make sure that we get a secret key out of the system. What we are focusing on as quantum optics Xena is building up these quantum key distribution systems, starting with photon sources, going through analyzer systems, the key generation and key management systems, to use these keys in encryption boxes or routers, for example, and securing the network traffic between 2 or more parties. And that's only an example. One of our first key we established. This is the way it will look. So you have Alice at the upper side and Bob measurement on the lower side. The crosses that are errors which occur, you have to think about them and you have to correct them. But at the end, you will get a secure key, which you then can use to secure your communication. So just a quick overview about the things which are quite interesting in quantum key distribution and what we have done at Quantum Optics Xena. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this very nice overview of how to use photons to transmit information, or at least the keys for the information, and how to use, say, this paradox from 1983, to now encode quantum keys. Very nice. Okay, then we will move on to our next talk, given by Dr. Nielsen from the Universal Quantum team. Dr. Alan Easton did his Bachelor of Arts in Genetics at the University of California in Berkeley, and moved on, did his PhD in Genetic Engineering and Neurodegeneration at the Harvard Medical School, and then become a management consultant at Bain Company and the co-founder after that at Karma. After that, he becomes a research partnership and business is in chief in business operation at the Ginger in San Francisco Bay, and becomes head of operations at the company Thumbtack in San Francisco Bay. And then since 2018, he became a VP of operation at Cytora London. And from 2020 on to today, he becomes then the VP in finance and operations at Universal Quantum, which is a startup in the quantum computing era. And he's also a member board of trustees at Chakara, which is a charity organization since 2021. The main areas of Universal Quantum is building the world's first 1 million, I repeated, 1 million qubit quantum computer based on silicon technology. It's a trapped ion technology, where individual modules are connected using ultrafast electric field links to perform an architecture that truly scales, meaning that we have a clearly well-defined roadmap towards this 1 million quantum computer. So the title of this talk is How to Deliver Useful Quantum Computers. And let's see how the trapped ions will conquer the QC loop, at least. Stage is yours.
Awesome, thanks, Christian. And very nice to be here with such a great panel today and good people. Thanks for inviting us to be part of it. Like Ilias, a similar story from a UK spinout, alluding to what David was talking about. So we're just thrilled to be part of the UK and broader European and global ecosystem, but have been very impressed with just the partnership between lots of different institutes in the UK to really promote and get going. And so we're excited to start moving beyond the UK borders as well, as we'll talk about. So as everyone agrees on this call, it feels non-contentious. Quantum computing is here. We've got and are building more powerful machines today. It's a really exciting time. Yes, the debate around when the very useful ones will be around is always there, but there are really useful things happening today. And folks like you're hearing from and us are building and partnering with great institutes out there to start mapping out and solving problems there and deliver utility and try and bring a lot of beauty into this world. Frankly, there are a lot of really gnarly challenges out there that we're trying to tackle, and it would be and we can't wait to see this happen. I won't spend any time here. It's a big impact on lots of industries. We've a few people talking about that already. I'll try and get to something more contentious. There you go. We've exited science fiction, no question about it, and there are a number of prototypes doing calculations out there that are exemplary and impressive. It's the feeling that if you look under the hood of pretty much most machines today, that's not what it's going to look like when we've got 1 million qubit useful machines out there. Everyone agrees you need many, many qubits to really do the most useful and world-changing calculations. And what you see today, it has to evolve. There are large challenges in a number of areas. To name a few, temperatures. So if you're aware of some of the architectures out there, they require going down to near 0 Kelvin temperatures. That's negative 273 degrees Celsius. That is really hard. It's done today and it's phenomenally exciting, but it's done on dozens of qubits. And that won't be the same as doing it on millions. And it's unclear how you would get up to millions on that one. Connectivity of qubits is another really fascinating one. I'm sure Ilias is very excited about this, having joined forces with Honeywell that also work on ion trap. I'll share a little bit more of us on ion trap shortly. The connectivity of the ions is really exciting because they can move around, they can swap, they can move in multiple dimensions. And furthermore, once you have devices that are modular and building up, you can solve some of those bigger connectivity problems without having a bunch of big dilution refrigerators, which are there's no clear way how you'd connect them today. So yeah, big surprise. we're gonna build this, but we do feel quite bullish about it. And I'm going to share in the next slide a few kind of pillars of our strategy behind it. and why we feel the approach we're taking is a little bit more engineering focused and less requiring major advances, major scientific or physics advances, where we feel some other approaches may indeed require that. So just spend a couple minutes here. So in the bottom right, I talked about cooling. So ion trap cooling, ion trap systems don't require cooling that far. And just a little bit of context. Ion trap and superconducting qubits are two of the leading ones. There are others, but I'm going to kind of emphasize those because superconducting is kind of the lead horse. It's got the most qubits out there in general with some of the big players you've heard about. And ion trap has a lot to be excited about, including not requiring that kind of cooling. Also in the top left, including having world record numbers in terms of some of the metrics and KPIs that you look at on these, the fidelities and aspects about the gates. Also that they're very reproducible and very similar. And then in the top right, there's this aspect of once you get to millions of qubits, millions of gates happening, some of the existing approaches are requiring optics or literally millions of lasers. Once you get up to that, it's unclear, how you would actually achieve that. So there are limitations to what you can achieve with the precision of optics and lasers. So we've taken an approach which has a more engineering-based approach using voltages and global microwaves. So what we're trying to do in these, I've given you a couple examples, is just look at some of the challenges to scaling big machines and sharing our approach to how we think we are going to get there. We're not doing it alone. Like the other great folks on this call and many others out there in the community, there are many phenomenal players in quantum. We know this has to be a network effect. Anyone is lying to you if they tell you they know exactly how the next 5 or 10 years is going to go. No one knows which architecture will win or how many will win or which problems will solve first. There are some great ideas out there, but it's really, it is a network, and it is about us learning from each other in part. So whether it's our competitors, and users and big corporates that we're starting to partner with today, supply chain partners, we really have to be holistic and think about this thoughtfully. And then I saw a similar diagram on Ilias's slides about, learning together and iterating. And great, let's map out the problem spaces. Let's start building and learning that together, because we're really going to have to think about not just connectivity within machines, but connectivity between organizations and people. What is the middleware of software that connects this huge stack to end users? What is the middleware of people and skills? Because quantum folks need to learn how to chat with, you name it, pharmacologists and reverse. So we're really learning all that today, and it's going to be an iterative process. So we have a partner network where we've started to do that, build with our partners. And if anyone wants to learn more, feel free to drop us a line anytime, please. So that's the main parts I wanted to share. And also, we've also arrived in Germany. So we're really excited about what's happening there from the former Prime Minister now and a lot of the community. And there's so much excitement for the technology, investing in it in many ways, in many senses of the word. So we've established our flagship in Germany as well. Both of our founders are German descent as well. So we've got good connections and really welcome additional insights and being partner of the community in Germany as we expand out into more of Europe. So I will keep it there. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this impressive talk about these trapped ion technologies. And obviously there are a lot of questions, starting how can you move from the power trap to this electric fields, which is incredible. I really like it that you don't have to have all these lasers around. That's cool. But let's also keep this later, and let's move on to Augustin Danchu from Main Incubator. So his feature is like that he did his Bachelor of Arts in the banking and the finance area at the Duale Hochschule Baden-Württemberg. So he's from Baden-Württemberg. Then he moved on to the Commerzbank, where he started as a product specialist in 2009, became a product manager in 2011. And then from 2015 to today, he became a cash services advisory manager. And today, he's also a technology expert at Main Incubator in Frankfurt, with about 40 employees, which is, the R&D division of the Commerzbank, and mainly interested in artificial intelligence, quantum computer, Internet of Things, robotics, and so on, all these future topics. And yeah, the goal is to accompany and support startups and build on their own prototypes in these interesting fields. So his title is Applied Research and Quantum Computing for Non-Financial Services at Main Incubator. And yeah, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me today. I think I'm the only one without a PhD here in this round of speakers. So this is pretty funny, but I think I have I have the same story to tell. This is for the sake of expectation management, but from a different point of view. So let's talk a bit about who we are and what we do. This makes things a bit easier. So I think you should see my screen right now with a slide where it's mentioned what our mission is. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So Main Incubator, by the way, is not the word Main. It comes from the river in Frankfurt. So it's the Main Incubator. We are, as you already mentioned, Christian, the R&D unit of Commerzbank Group and the early stage venture capital investor. And we have three pillars, actually, the prototyping, the ventures, and the community. And I will dive into the first one. So our corporate venture capital deals, for example, we are in from a global point of view on a place after Citi and Goldman Sachs with 20 active investments. By the way, right now there are 23 because these are the figures from Q3 with 32 million net asset investment and an IRR of 15.2%. Why am I telling you this? Because we are not only looking into technology, we're also looking at the market and what startups are doing. This is a cooperation approach from us. You could also think of kind of try to buy all the upcoming startups. This will kind of lead to an negative impact because you can't afford to buy all startups, or you go the other way around and you cooperate with them and invest into the startups that may be interesting for your company or your customers. And this is our approach. On the community development side, we won a couple of awards that we are very proud of. For example, for Best Digital Innovation Unit in Germany, or Best Company in Banking, or something like this. This makes us very proud and kind of gives us the feeling that we are dealing with topics that are interesting, that are important and necessary to deal with in the future and currently and for the future. But let's go into the prototyping pillar that we have. Everything that we do is kind of mapped into this little overview, the banking map. This is an overview of all 6 sectors within a bank, because being a R&D in a bank, we also always are looking into financial services, of course, that are interesting for a bank. For example, market infrastructure, deposit lending, payments, and so on and so forth. And each and every technology that we are looking for will be mapped to the banking map, where the potential is high to kind of have a shift in the product, in the customer, due to upcoming new technology. Talking about new technology, we are using, this is not invented by us, a technology readiness level is an approach from space industry, where you kind of map technologies from just an idea status to a full commercial application, in order to kind of have a look from your point of view. For us, it's of course banking, into each technology, and to I have this slide here. This is what I mean, and have to have the overview. What can just be interesting for us in the future, because it may have an impact for our society and the way we think about things. The yellow part is the validation part, where this is the main focus in Main Incubator, where we do go into developing the solutions, trying to understand the technology more than just reading, so also in a practical point of view. And the green, so the level technology readiness level 7 to 9 are actually ready to use. So this is out of scope for us. We're not looking into this, and quantum computing is in a validation phase right now. So yes, it is ready. I can only repeat the other three speakers. It is ready. We should go into looking into quantum computing, and this is why we also have established a little community called Quantum Circle. This is due to the fact that we talked with a lot of colleagues of us, other banks here in Europe, mainly in the German-speaking sector, so in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And kind of the result was that no one is really looking into quantum computing from financial services right now. And this is where we came up with the idea that we share our solutions that we have with the community of financial services sector people, and give them the opportunity to kind of dive into quantum computing with things that we developed so far. For example, a qubit generator. Some of you may know what it is. It's kind of a necessary step to use quantum annealing. Another thing that is interesting when talking about quantum computing. But to skip all these details here, the important point is that it is right now the time to deal with quantum computing and to have a look into it, to prepare yourself for the new upcoming technology that will be there. And of course, we don't know which kind of technology, and we don't know when it will be ready to use for production exactly, but I think we all agree that it will be usable for production in the next years. So it is very important to not only have the skill set, but also have to bear in mind that there may be some new products coming, not only improving current products and processes, but it's also interesting to kind of develop new ones for your firm or company. I think I am within my 10 minutes, so thank you very much for your attention. And if there are any questions, then feel free to ask. I think I can't hear, Christian.
Oh, sorry, still happens. Okay, thanks a lot for this nice presentation, and also for the overview from the finance side here, Germany and Frankfurt. Very great, very nice. At least also your I think last slide with all the prototypings, very impressive. Let's talk about this now in our moderated Q&A. So we're a bit late, but still we have 20 minutes to go. So I would suggest to first of all give say the audience the option or the possibility to ask questions if you want to. Other than that, we obviously can have a lot of questions prepared. Okay, so feel free to raise your hand and to ask a question or to give a question in the chat. Okay, so having a look at the chat, okay, there was one comment. Okay, Universal Quantum is now at 26 employees. Okay, good to know. That's already a very nice development. That if we have here Universal Quantum, then let me ask a question. So you have these 2,000, or you have this 1 million roadmap up to 2030. So when you're a bit aware of how trapped ions usually are very good because they are high confidently, right? They have low error, they have a long adherence time. So information can be hosted within these things. And then usually, so when you start in trapped ions, you have these one-dimensional chains, and then you can get a coupling to the vibronic modes, and then you can couple in this chain not only the nearest neighbors, but a lot of ions. Right. So, but okay, so you start with this 1D chains, but obviously to generate a 1 million thing, like I heard that the idea has already been realized that you have a store sector where you store the information. You can always put them back in the chain or something like this. Can you give us an overview how you can process really, or what are you able to, what's the amount of qubits which can be coupled in a 1 million, in a 1 million scope?
Yeah, so what you're alluding to are like the kind of multiple levels of challenges of connectivity when you've got a million qubit quantum computer. So we think of that in a couple ways. We're building quantum computers with our unit that we believe is highly scalable and modular, and then flexing that up to multiple modules that fit together, so you get your million. So there are elements both in the unit and in the scaled multi-module machine that achieve what you're talking about. Within the unit, there are 1D approaches towards ion traps out there for sure. Our architecture and design, part of which we did publish a few years ago, is to have a 2D system. So if you imagine a plane, a 2D plane, or the top of a chip, where you're trapping ions, controlling them with these microwaves and other fields that we talked about or alluded to, that you're actually taking advantage of 2 dimensions and the sophistication behind routing and algorithmic approaches towards getting things where you want them, thinking about the loading zones, the activation zones, the gate zones, and controlling all that in a much more you just got more variability and that you can work with when you've got that zone. Some limitation of some 1D approaches is that you've just got that dimension. Now you can do swap operations and have 2 qubits meet and then change information, move other ways. Our approach believes that there's exponential advantage to having this much higher connectivity between almost all, well, I won't say all qubits, but many more qubits being able to interact with each other. And then our module, our approach there is to say, well, how do you get, if you've got what you call these X junctions on a 2D plane, once you've got a number of X junctions on your singular chip, your one module, how do you connect it? And that's where these electric interlinks come into play, essentially, not requiring photonic interlinks, which my understanding is that the science isn't quite as advanced there yet to actually move information to the photons, then get them to another one, because there's loss in that process, but create one 2D plane via modularity and connecting our things through that. And we'll have new news to share around that kind of stuff very shortly.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really great, yeah. And that also, so currently there are a lot of approaches which will a different hardware but very related, right? These cold atoms and Rydberg atoms, which are uncharged, but you can also do like a lot of things like you can do with trapped ions. But you don't have the electromagnetic background because they are neutral, right? So what would be your answer if you compare these technologies, Rydberg atoms, cold atoms, with respect to trapped ions? So what are the benefits of trapped ions, and maybe also the weaknesses?
Yeah, sure. So so trapped ions, and I think you could see this in actually one of Ilyas's slides as well. So Honeywell also uses the trapped ion approach, if you've caught that. So trapped ions are known for showing world record numbers in terms of some of the coherences, fidelities as well. So 99.9% in the field fidelities. So that you're starting with an architecture, if you will, or a unit, a trapped ion that already has decently advanced research, decade plus behind it, of understanding the quantum dynamics of it and using it as a quantum, qubit essentially. So we know a lot about it. It's got a lot of benefits and pros, and even world records around some of the most important aspects of what a qubit should have. They're not perfect. No architecture is. We talked about that. One place where superconducting has the advantage, for example, is in gate speeds, which are superior to ion traps and others, for example. So ion traps have a lot going for them. I think of it as like, superconducting is one of the first, kind of the lead horse in the race that's shown the most maturity. but that ion traps have a ton of reason to bet on them and to start building systems around them. And there's other great things about the other systems as well. I wouldn't do them justice by talking about their benefits. So.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, this is one, I think, yes, so the trapped ions have a high fidelity and long decoherence times, but as you said, superconducting have short gate times. So the question, right, one always needs to ask is what's say this fraction, gate time to decoherence time. So what's the amount of gates I can really realize before decoherence? What's your answer for the trapped ions?
Well, I couldn't give you a perfect calculation, but I can give you the comparators to how to measure each of those individually. So if you think of coherence time on trapped ions, they're measured on the order of seconds, whereas some others, superconducting, for example, are more on microseconds to hundreds of microseconds. So you've already got a more stable entity that you're dealing with that you can do gate activations on for sure. On the gate speeds, hundreds of microseconds on the order of for trapped ions systems, whereas microseconds or even towards nanosecond realm on the gate speeds for superconducting. So, I mean, there's obviously other variables that go into it, and the fidelity obviously plays a huge role because the number of like useful gate operations is clearly critical. But that's the math into it. I can't tell you a perfect answer though.
Yeah, but that's already great. Yeah, because it's always a fraction, the number of gates, right? You can realize.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's come to a completely different hardware structure, like to these the optics, so the photons, which also have very strong benefits, at least for good decoherence times, and also they can propagate in space, right? So this using entanglement, as Kevin Füchsel explained, can create this these channels for the quantum keys. Maybe Kevin, you can comment a bit on what are current time scales, or what are current. Do I need a repeater like in classical data science to transmit information? Do I need repeaters, or is it stable to have for this quantum channel?
So one of the biggest issue right now is really the question, how far can we go?
Exactly.
So there are different approaches. So if you think about fiber networks, you will lose photons over space. So at the moment we're talking about distances between, let's say, 50 and 150 kilometers, for example, where you have useful key rates, which you can use to decrypt both parties. If you go to fiber networks, there are activities and also projects going on to deliver keys out of space. So then you have, for example, a satellite in space which delivers these keys, which can bridge the space. So we are now talking about, let's say, distances between 500 and 700 kilometers. But there are huge efforts to create a satellite, send them to space, create a satellite network, which actually deliver keys for many parties. So actually, in fiber networks, there's also a lot of things going on to building quantum repeaters, because the problem is you cannot measure the photon and send it further due to the quantum state, which you will destroy. So, but there are concepts. They are more or less academic concepts to build quantum memories, which work as quantum repeaters as well. But this is something which we probably will not see in real applications till the next 5 years, maybe even longer. So this is research we have to do at the moment. But there are use cases right now where partners and customers think about using this 100, 200 kilometer distance to secure the communication between data centers or between two parties. So for sure, there are applications already on the field.
Okay, great for this. Thanks for this great answer. And one more question, I guess, which is very natural concerning to your talk is, so yes, you say you use the quantum physics to the collapse of the wave functions to secure the quantum keys. or to see at least if a third party entered your channel, then you know that somebody entered and somebody, and then it's not allowed maybe to store the information. But isn't the information then already lost? So so post-quantum cryptography encodes the whole information, and you are only, so at least to my understanding, you just recognized if a third party entered the game, right? So
both. Mm-hmm. So maybe to give it clear, we generate the photons, and this generated photons will be the key. So actually, you getting both of them in the same. So you generate a key on the physical process because there is no electronics in our system which you do deal with. It's only a pump laser and on off. And if you switch it on, it will generate entangled photons if your optical setup is right. And then you use this photons for the key. So there is no mathematical background to create this key. So there is also no way to use a quantum computer to compromise this key because you cannot calculate it. It's stochastics, it's physics, which lead to the key. And then on the other side, within the protocol, you measure the entanglement. So if you see that the entanglement is broken, and you will see it, that's the Bell's theorem, where you can check if you have entanglement, if it's entangled or not. And you will see in your statistics that somebody tries to compromise your system, and then for sure you won't use this key because you cannot be sure that. So there's a threshold value. It's called the quantum bit error rate, which we measure every time. Mm-hmm. And if this factor is too high, then you know that something wrong in the system. It could be an eavesdropper, but it could be too much absorption in some stream or something happens. But at least you know the key you actually generate is not secure anymore, and you don't use it to encrypt your messages.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, makes sense. Thank you a lot. There's one more question, so from the chat, which is maybe somebody of you wants to tackle this. And what are the top 5 challenges that research is happening to bring the technology to application? I mean, the technology is hard to identify, so I mean, very tough. Who wants to answer this?
So should I start? So
yeah,
for us it's quite simple. Bring a system to 24/7. So if you are coming from a research institute, on paper you do want to have a nice let's say experiment, which has to work maybe once or twice, but then you can write a paper. If you go to industry, the system has to run 24 hours, the whole week, the whole year, automated calibration, etc., etc. So that's the main challenge at the moment, to really bring the technology to a level that you can give this to customers, and the customer do not need a PhD to install the system, and start running it out of the box, putting some cables somewhere, press a button, and then the system should work. So that's the division we also have to enable QKD in a way that, let's say, nearly everybody can use it.
And Lion, what are the current showstoppers for trapped ions?
Sorry, the question is the showstoppers for
trapped ions. The main challenge, exactly. The main challenges for trapped ions to scale it up.
Oh, well, so modularity is a huge area we think about. You know, when I talk about getting the unit piece right, and then scaling up many modules together that can talk to each other. So it's not just physically aligning things, it's having your entire quantum environment lined up to be controlling everything. So you've got all your lasers, you've got your vacuum, you've got all your microcontrollers, everything happening, of course, the chips themselves, that the whole thing has to kind of scale up together. I mean, there is a lot of logic behind it. I'd argue some of the things is just like just proving the things that you see the physics on paper. So a lot of our approach we've tried to make as engineering based as possible. we have ideas about how a lot of these things will work. It's a lot of hard work involved. Anyone who wants to come on board and join ship, like Kevin says, there's lots of differences between research world and this world. But no lack of exciting things when it comes to these machines and designing them. There's a lot of interdisciplinary aspects that people have to start learning about. So if I'm a quantum physicist, I can't just be thinking about my modeling algorithm for my qubits. I have to be interacting with everyone around me, my quantum environment people, my ASIC chip designers, my mechanical engineers, everyone, my software engineers say, well, what are our control elements? Do we really get this full stack? If you're trying to build a company that's really solving these problems, you're really going to have to be full stack. It is our strong feeling because it's too integrated, the end product. So do you really understand the interplay of all these disciplines and how they need to work together? Have you assembled a team that can also understand that and work across these things and learn new disciplines as much as they need to? I think almost the operational side of it, of building an organization that lives and breathes and can know how to learn and flex and touch things, will be just as fascinating as solving specific technical challenges.
Okay, thanks a lot. And then let's come also to Augustine again, to your great presentation. Concerning your last slide, where you said that you build your own prototypes, like for example the quantum development kit or the QAOA kits. Can you explain? Are you doing this on your own? So at Main Incubator, do you have quantum software engineers, or can you explain here a bit?
Yes. So the answer is yes. We did it on our own, and we have a couple of engineers that are building all these. Let's say, actually, it's a Python library that is also available on GitHub. This is to describe the way for us when we begin to kind of get into our first prototype. That was actually one together with Fujitsu and on the digital annealer unit, so in quantum annealing simulation. We started to kind of learn how to develop in the quantum world, and this is the result out of it. So of course, we then moved on from the simulation to D-Wave, in this case, to the real quantum annealer, and from then on to quantum gate computing. And we understood and we kind of learned that you can use the code that you build up for different kind of hardware solutions, but you need to prepare the problem that you defined for particular hardware systems. And this is our code that we had. So in fact, it's we have things that are already existing. When you talk about PennyLane or Cambridge Quantum are doing the same things, actually way better than we did. But however, when we last year began building this process on, for example, QAOA, a library that is for quantum gate computing, very interesting for optimization problems. We thought that it might be worth sharing it with the world, sharing it with our colleagues, in order to not letting them start from zero from the very beginning where they do not have anything. Also, this is why we built up a quantum annealing simulator within our premises that can be accessible via API for Quantum Circle members. This is all to kind of get things running, because I think, to answer your question 5 minutes before, one of the important things from my point of view as business, coming from financial services, is that people have to think about quantum technology and what they can do with it, in particular quantum computing. So I think right now we are at the perfect point in time where we kind of can use the situation, growing up with the technology in order to understand what happens, and to repeat what Kevin just said, at the end of the time, the people that will use quantum computing, they don't care about what kind of circuits are behind it. They just want to plug it in and use it or in this case, maybe they don't plug it in, they will use a cloud-based service, but nevertheless, they just want to use it and get the results. And I think to achieve this, people have to be aware of what does happen right now with quantum computing. So this is why we have our own engineers. Of course, not a lot. We have 5 people dealing with quantum computing right now, in order to make sure that we don't miss a thing, like we missed with PayPal, by the way, a couple of years ago. This should not happen another time. So yes, we have our own engineers here within Mind Incubator. But also we cooperate with others. For example, the Planck Consortium, we're part of it. We're talking with different universities in Munich, for example, and in Berlin. So this is also an important thing to do, to kind of partnering with other companies that deal with quantum computing.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I think this is a very good topic, this partnering, how to cooperate with each other, especially not within these nations, but also interacting between the UK and the German ecosystem. Maybe David, Rain, you can also state a bit here, what are the the restrictions, or are there some showstoppers currently due to the current situation, or how is it able to collaborate here in research initiatives, for example, or directly?
So as far as I'm aware, there's no showstoppers, which is first thing to tell everybody. We've signed an association agreement around the Horizon Europe agreement coming up, as well as part of our very comprehensive agreement we signed with Europe in December. So there's lots of opportunities coming up. As I said in my presentation, the grants which are made available through the UK government, through our research institutes, through the academic institutions, and through our knowledge transfer programs are open to, designed for consortiums, and those consortiums are able to have international partners in them. That's always been the case, and it will continue to be the case. The hubs which we talked about and the various national quantum computing institutes we talked about are all available to connect with. But there's also an event coming up on the 5th of November, which I'd quickly like to highlight, which is our National Quantum Technologies Showcase, something which happens every year. We get together in London, and for a day, all the people who've been funded get together and show off what they've achieved in a big sort of exhibition space. Last year it was a virtual event, but this year it's going to be a face-to-face event. So that's in London on the 5th of November. If anybody's interested, we can share more information about it. There's also a publication which comes out with the event, which outlines all the projects which are there, and you'll see all the partners who are involved. So certainly everybody's very welcome to come and see what we're doing, to talk about it, to broker partnerships. As some of the British companies have said today, they've already got offices in Germany, so you have local people you can talk to as well. So yeah, we're very much open for business.
Yeah, these are great news. These are great news. I think also from the German side, there's a lot of, we would be very interested to find collaborations there. At least say on this Thursday already, there's this Baden-Württemberg International event where also there, I think also the UK is represented there and so on. And for example, also with Israel, I mean, you all are aware of Classic, I guess, the startup from Israel for the automated circuit generation, and they would also be fundable by the EU Horizon projects and so on. So I think this is a great project, the EU, where we really should stick together and focus, bring our knowledge together, especially from the German side. With, at least to my best knowledge, we at Square, we have a lot of companies there, and also in the Planck Consortium, obviously, where we learned that every use case is special, and you really need to tailor the software to the use case itself, and then bring it to the suited hardware, which is a very, very difficult task to do in the end. But we are right in the very beginning, and yeah. Okay, great. Elias had to leave, so we can ask him no further questions, unfortunately, even though there are maybe a lot of questions. But nevertheless, let's ask the participants if there are any more questions they want to ask our experts here. Okay, if this is not the case, then from my side, let's speak all the speakers again. Thanks, and it was a great opportunity to network, to get an overview of the whole ecosystem, and yeah, to have an overview over this interesting topic. Thanks a lot to all of the speakers and the organizers.
Well, and from my side, thank you, Christian, for the great moderation. Thank you to all the participants. And I think there is a lot in store, a lot to come. And the developments are going so fast that there is probably room that we have a session like this again in 6 or 8 months. If you have input for us, if you have questions, send them to us. We will forward it to the participants and to the speakers. And yes, join us for other sections, for other sessions and webinars. And have a great day, great rest of the year, and yeah, let's all work on the future together. Thank you so much, and yeah, have a great day. And once again, thanks to everybody, to the participants and to the speakers especially. Bye-bye.